Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 285 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is Challenge Yourself. Our quote of the day comes to us from Morgan Freeman. Challenge yourself. It's the only path which leads to growth. I'm excited to bring you today's episode. I've known our guest since he was in the first grade and had the opportunity to coach him at the AU level. I'm proud of the successful playing career David McClure had, and I'm just as proud to be able to watch him coach in the NBA today. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Dave, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been a long time overdue.
It's been a long time. So I appreciate you spending some time with us. First question we ask everybody is, I was curious if you have either a no-quit story of your own or perhaps a really challenging time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
There are a few of those through my career. Unfortunately, most of them had to do with injury. Had through my, I would like to say adult career, and I say adult from when I got to college. I've had 6 knee surgeries on both of my knees, 4 on the left, 2 on the right. And the second one I had on my left was probably the most challenging thing I've ever had to go through in my life. From the day of the surgery, which I believe was March 12th, they pretty much told me no matter what I did, it was going to be a 13 to 14 month recovery, full recovery. And I wasn't even able to get on an exercise bike until I think November 28th or something like that. So you can only imagine I was 3 months non-weight bearing. So my leg was a complete noodle. It's amazing how just being able to stand and support your body weight can keep a muscle from atrophying. But it was the most challenging thing I'd ever done. I think I gained about 40 pounds. I think, probably to some degree, being in an interesting place in my head. It was the first time I didn't have basketball. It was the first time I could, to some degree, validate allowing myself to have some semblance of a childhood life because, I don't know whether you look at it as a good thing or a bad thing, but, I grew up and, you went to camps and you listened to stories of the players and the coaches telling you how to make it and to work hard and, to sacrifice early so you can have more, down the line. And, I that was me. I think I can count, on 2 hands the amount of times I was doing something or taking, probably on one hand, the amount of times I took a trip in high school that wasn't basketball related. So suddenly you're telling me 13 months whether I am the most disciplined human being or lazy or, irresponsible. It's no shorter than 13 months when you're 19 years old. That's, scary. You don't know what to do with yourself, but to some degree, if you give yourself a reason to be a kid. And when you are trying to be a professional athlete or a collegiate athlete for that matter, that's tough to balance those two things. So when I think at my 40 pounds overweight and sitting there not knowing how my body's going to respond once I get healthy. And I think at one point I just looked at myself in the mirror and I, told myself, whether it be the doubters or the haters who, when I told me I'd never be able to play or crack a rotation at Duke, or just the fear in my mind that potentially my coaches or my teammates might say, well, that's it for Dave, time to go. He's done. Who knows what's going to come? I was determined to be that, not be the kid that got injured and got forgotten or never made it or what happened to. So I didn't know what my ceiling was going to be. I didn't know if I could ever be the player that I maybe would have been before that. But, I knew that I was going to take everything that I could control and, kind of focused that on just getting everything possible out of my body that I could, to prove myself that I belonged and to prove to people who, had their doubts that I was right.
Well, I appreciate you touching that. And I just wanted to follow up and ask if you wouldn't mind just telling our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you're doing today.
So David McClure. I grew up in Southern Connecticut. Spent all my years there through high school. Played on a few different AAU teams growing up, from one in Connecticut, one in New York, and one based out of New Jersey. Lucky enough to get recruited and do my collegiate career at Duke University on scholarship all 5 of my years. Redshirted my sophomore year due to one of the knee surgeries that I previously just discussed. Wanted more than anything to play professionally after college, and that path took me to the then D League, now G League, with the Austin Spurs. Did that for a year, and then did 4 years traveling and playing basketball in Lithuania. Couple stints in the Euro Cup and Baltic League while playing over there. Never wanted to retire, as nobody who truly loves the game will always tell you. But after bilaterally getting surgeries 5 and 6 on the left and the right knee, while rehabbing and preparing to return for my 5th year overseas, I just kind of put a few feelers out there to see what was going on in the circles that I had made and the networks I had made through my playing days. And, as fate would have it, it appeared that there was going to be a positioning opening up in the video room in San Antonio. And, I kind of, as hard as it was to make the decision, I saw it as a blessing in disguise, because, I was 28 at the time. And I don't think if the body was still cooperating, I'd want to retire now. So, blessing in disguise, took it, ran with it, and, got lucky enough to, get, to get the job that I wanted. And that was on the table in San Antonio. So took that, ran with it, and haven't looked back since.
And you're the assistant now with the Memphis Grizzlies, correct?
I am, yes. I did 2 years with the video room in San Antonio. I then got lucky enough to take on the development coach position with the Indiana Pacers. And after my 2nd year there, got a bump in position and got officially named assistant coach, which was a true honor to work with, officially be one of Nate McMillan's staff. That was, such a tremendous 3 years, going in with Paul George to the transition to the, Oladipo and Sabonis, working with Miles Turner. It was, 3 years that, as a perfect correlation to the NBA, you never really know what's going to happen. You take it and run. And then after the 3 years there, I got reached out to. My agent called me up and found out that Taylor Jenkins had recently taken the head coaching job with the Memphis Grizzlies. And as fate would have it, my 1 year that I spent in the G League under Quinn Snyder as my head coach, Taylor Jenkins was one of the 2 assistant coaches on staff that worked with us day in and day out. I had kept pretty good contact with him through the years, and when I come to find out that he had offered me a job, it was a very tough decision. I loved working with Taylor. I had tremendous respect for him, and I knew he was going to be an amazing head coach. But it was always sad. I came in and I was brought in with Nate McMillan to the Indiana Pacers, and we had kind of been seeing our vision and his vision and what we had been building towards, to some degree, come to fruition and really start to see the fruits of the labor we had been putting in. But so it was very sad and a tough decision to say goodbye. But just with the opportunity that was had presented itself with Memphis, the fact that they had worked with Jaren, and just recently had Ja. It was a new coaching staff. It was something that was tough to pass up. And in terms of wanting to to constantly grow and continue to learn, I just felt it was the right opportunity to take.
No, I appreciate you sharing that backstory. And for our listeners, I have to share that I actually coached Dave way back when in his AAU days during Connecticut. So interesting and to see where you've gone, and super proud of what you did, not only in college, after college playing, but now what you're doing in the NBA is really cool. So super proud of you, my man. And I want to follow up a question as we are going through this challenging time, not only throughout the world, but our country. But just interested how you're handling all this stuff personally and from the professional perspective, knowing that we're all in this state of flux where we're not sure exactly what's going on.
No, I think that's the biggest thing is, that you said, we don't know exactly what's going on. You hear so much that's constantly changing. And then at the same time, we don't know what the future is for us, for the players. We have such a young team, but to some degree, whether you have a young team or a veteran team, no one really knows. This is such uncharted territory. So it's interesting because suddenly you have all this time and you sit there and you're wondering what you can do with it, but then you're kind of constantly being pulled and wondering what you could be doing to stay engaged, to keep our guys engaged. I think we do a great job with our coaching staff. We get on Zoom as much as we can, a couple times a week. We don't go crazy with it, but we just try to brainstorm with ways to keep guys engaged. And if this happens, what would be the best plan of action, and et cetera, et cetera. And it's a lot of it's just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. But knowing that tomorrow or the next day we might have to completely rethink things. So I think the hardest thing has been trying to do what you can to stay engaged without kind of going crazy, because everything you do might be for nothing, and everything you do might be for the biggest thing possible, or that's out there. So just finding that balance between realizing that this is the reality and who knows for how long, but we still have a reality that we're hoping to get back to.
Yeah, no, and hopefully as things transition, we'll know more coming up. Curious on the personal side, not that you're not doing anything, obviously you're staying engaged and doing that, but I'm curious if you're doing anything. Have you been trying something? Have you been reading any books or doing anything to kind of develop yourself during some of this time away from everything?
Yeah, I've been doing my best to keep up. There was a book I'd started actually last summer, which I hadn't had a chance to pick up since the season really got going. And that was Forever's team, given to me a couple of years back. And it's actually about the 78 Duke team that went to the Final Four. And a lot of correlations just between, the success that they had that year, what they felt maybe they lost going into what they lost with the success they had that year. Then the guys all got 1 year, 2 years older, more experience, talent grew, yet they never really got back there. So it's interesting sometimes the correlations you see, and I'm finding with to some degree the success we had with our young guys this year. I think we were scratching the surface, and I think there's a lot more to come. Only time will tell. But how do you hold on to that? There was a very special thing we felt this year with our guys, the way they got along, the way they connected, and it's not guaranteed that you find that from year to year, from day to day. So. That's been something I've been spending my time with, and then also using it selfishly to, and I also think selfishly, but it's hopefully going to make me a better individual as well, as getting myself back into shape. When you have spent, 10, 12, 14 years of your adult life having to kind of keep yourself at a high level of fitness, when this was the first time when I got to Indiana, it was new. It was my first time on staff, but, Bill Bano and I were the two new guys. Frank Vogel had just been replaced with Nate McMillan, but Nate McMillan had been on staff there. He had been on staff with Popeye Jones. He had been on staff with Dan Burke. He had been on staff with the medical team, with the performance team. When I got into Memphis this year, I think we have one coach on staff who was with the Grizzlies last year. I think from our medical team, there's only a handful of guys that are there. From the performance team, there's a lot of new faces. So, it was in, a constant state of flux where nobody knew. There was so much to kind of iron down in terms of what was our culture going to be? How are things going to be run? Okay, you used to run things this way. Now we want to run things this way. How can we meet people, in the middle ground? That it was truly, a whirlwind from the moment I got in Memphis after, interviewing and accepting the job till the time that the season kind of went on hiatus. So I did what I could, but, having more of a behind the scenes or a mentoring role in this job in Memphis versus a more of an on the court role in Indiana and San Antonio, it's a bit tougher. So I've been trying to do my best, socially distancing while doing so, getting out, getting a couple hours of walking in, doing some band exercises, getting out to a field and doing some calisthenics and some agility drills just to, it's for me at least, when I get out of shape, something feels off. I don't feel like I'm the best version of myself. So hopefully, I'm trying to strengthen my mind, getting the books a little bit, reading as much as I can, listening to podcasts as much as I can. And then, on the other side, trying to just get my physical well-being back to a point where I feel healthy and like myself.
Yeah, I think it's important. We've obviously done a ton of interviews, and I think during these challenging times, people are having the opportunity to, in essence, reinvent themselves in some ways. But for the first time, a lot of people have been talking about the opportunity to work on yourself. And not that people don't work on themselves during traditional times, but the reality is you got work, you got family, friends, you just got a lot of stuff going on. And I think for us, one of the things we're trying to inspire people to do is take some of this time, and work on yourself and get yourself back to the place where you need to be, not just physically, but emotionally, because these are very challenging times.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's one of those things. I can't remember where I was listening to a podcast and they were saying, if you're one of those guys who for the past 10 or 15 years or 20 years have been saying, man, if I could just have some time I could just really get my novel going. I could start if you're not starting it during this time, you got no excuses, man. So, it's doing it one by one, but trying to do my best if I could paint the picture of creating the perfect routine or creating the perfect that can help me be the best me, I'm trying to get that going and hopefully have that, that machine in play and do the best that I can to incorporate it in once the chaotic, hectic nature of the season and just daily life and my day-to-day gets back.
Might be a challenging question in some ways, but I'm curious, is there one thing that you really learned or took from Duke that's helped you in both your personal and professional life?
I think the biggest thing is being honest and to yourself and to the people that are closest to you, and then one and the same with that, or going hand in hand is being able to hold yourself and the people around you to a level of accountability. It's something that I think one thing is being honest with yourself is extremely hard because it's sometimes second nature. It's just easier for us to make excuses and point the finger and it's somebody else's fault, or I did everything I could do, when there's usually always a little something more you can do, or in some cases a lot more you can do. And then the other thing is if it's not a one-on-one sport, whether you're in an organization, whether you're a part of a team, it's so many people are involved. And if you have whether it be a colleague or somebody beneath you, at times one of the best things that we've incorporated in Memphis is just such a an open panel for discussion and debate, so that if our head coach comes out and has an idea and we disagree, we all feel empowered to step up and say something. And if you can look somebody in the face, sometimes it's not what they want to hear. A lot of times it's hard for people to do because not everybody's wired this way. But if you can look them in the face and tell them, hey, you're not bringing it today, or you're an alien today. You're normally great. But you're off. Something's you got take a day, refresh yourself, come back. You got to be better. If you can look at somebody in the eye and tell them they got to be better, and then they know you're telling them the truth when you're telling them they're doing a great job. And, I think too many times people are afraid to say, hey, you got to step up. You got to be better. Hey, I need more from you. I need this. Because a lot of times if people hear it, they'll rise to the challenge. And, if you don't call people out, and I'm not saying, you want to live in an environment where you're constantly challenging people, but, you could leave things on the table. There could be, stones left unturned. You could, put out a better product or a better organization or have better success as a team if you aren't afraid to call somebody out. But that's the trust. You call them out on a bad day, but they have trust because you've told them that they did a good job on a good day, and it just creates an environment where, success should come from.
Interesting question I ask every guest, and I'm actually, having known you as long as I have, I'm curious for your answer. If you had to define yourself, but you could only use one word, what word would you pick?
I think I'd say genuine, and I think sometimes people think at times I'm closed off, or like oh you're, and I think just for the line of work that I'm in, and some people who know me, they think I'm crazy by saying this, but there are some extremely charismatic, extroverted people in this league or in this business, and they go out there and can sit 500 people down and keep them captivated with every single word. And, just because you aren't that way, or just because you're better in a one-on-one environment, or you're better at meeting somebody and engaging in small groups rather than, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. And, I like to relate and connect with people on a personal level. And, I think that's the biggest thing, is don't try to be somebody you're not. And, even if something, like, let people get to know you by spending time with you, by asking questions. Don't try to be something you're not, because if you go out there and try to fake it, I think people can read that from a mile away. And even if it takes them a little bit more time to get to know the real you, be you, and usually that'll come out and win people over.
No, I appreciate that, and I think it's good advice on many fronts. If I had the opportunity, Dave, to give you or grant you dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would you pick?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Huh. Let me get back to that, because I actually had a conversation with somebody. We actually did this as a coaching staff not so long ago, just over dinner. And we all had to choose three, so I have three to pick from, and we'll get back to it.
You can give all three if you want. You could be creative.
Well, now I want, yeah. Give me time. I'm gonna do a little multitasking here, and I'll get back to that one.
All right. So, another question I ask, which I think is interesting: if you could go back and give the 20-year-old Dave just one piece of advice, what would it be?
Honestly, for me, I think I was so go. I wanted to work. I wanted to do more. I wanted to go to the next camp. I wanted to go to the next drill. I wanted to listen to and take care of your body as much as you want to. As much as you want to work, as much as you feel like you're invincible, sometimes listen to your body, sometimes listen to your medical doctors, your coaches. I see it all the time now with some guys who will get a little ding or a little injury, and they're craving so badly to get back on the court or to do one more rep, or is one more minute on the court during my recovery or my rehabilitation really going to be that detrimental? Is it that important to do the stretching or to get with my massage therapist? And the answer is yes. If this is your career, if this is, if you're a race car driver and you got your car, you're going to treat that car the best way possible. And whether that's food going into it, whether it's preparation going before practice, recovery after practice, day off recovery. I know and that's from a player's perspective. And I think, anybody who ends up, I think anybody who ends up in coaching, whether you started when, fresh out of high school, at some point in your life, even if it was far back as middle school, elementary school, you wanted to be a player. So you never know when that dream's going to end. But if that's your dream, which it was for me until it wasn't anymore, take care of your body and give yourself the opportunity to see that dream unfold.
All right, so we're jumping lanes here to what we call our hot seat questions, and I think I might know some of these answers. I'm curious. So the first and only thing we ask is you just spit out the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
If you had one last meal and you could pick absolutely anything, what would you pick?
Ooh, grandma's meatloaf.
Favorite sport?
Basketball.
All-time favorite team?
Professional, that I played on, or
You can answer however you want to.
all-time favorite team. Let's say my playing on. I'll just say my last year playing because I knew it, and I think I truly appreciated every moment as much as I could.
Favorite smell?
Ooh. Coffee in the morning.
Favorite book?
Not fictional. A Vision from the Goon Squad. Non-fictional. I'm gonna need to get back to you. I have a short list too, but fictional. I'll go Vision from the Goon Squad.
All-time favorite movie?
Oof. Let's go. It's a tough one. Let's go. Scent of a Woman's top 5.
Nice.
Throw that in there.
Do you have an all-time favorite quote?
I want to say if I can, it's going to be tough to say it's all-time favorite, but if I can remember it correctly from my dad, and I'm not sure who he got it from, but what is it? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yes, great. That's a great quote, and I think I probably overheard your dad saying it many times when we were young and fighting some battles on the court.
He'd love to tell me, it's always going to be that time when it's the fourth. However you're tired, you got the best. You got whoever's in the stands watching you, and you worked your ass off for it, and all right, now's the time. Have you put in the preparation? Here's your opportunity. Are you prepared? And that's luck. There's no luck.
I love it. Favorite singer, group, or band?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go off the rails here. I normally would preface this, but to be completely transparent, I am just a huge Bruno Mars fan.
Nice.
I think he's got it all. He's a musician. He can play the instruments. He's all about having fun. He's got energy. He puts out album after album after album. He doesn't disappear. I think when it's all said and done, he's one of the few artists that just continuously put out hit after hit after hit after hit, CD after CD. And I've got plenty others. I feel like I like all genres of music, but it's a hot take there. Not many people I feel like would expect that.
No, I definitely did not expect that. And if you were stuck in a foxhole and you could only pick one person to have your back, who would it be?
I mean, shoot, Mama's boy here. I'll go Mom.
No, don't tell your dad that.
I know. Well, I think he'd know that answer too.
So, if you want to go back to your answer, you can answer it now, or you can leave it as to be determined.
I think I'll go. I'll probably go Martin Luther King.
Nice.
I go back and forth, but just some of the stories, so much of how I was raised. Coming from a biracial family, my parents are a bit older; they're both mid-70s. So much of how I was raised, I think, had to do with what my dad went through growing up during this, during the civil rights and everything that he went through, and just I honestly think he modeled his life, modeled what he stood for after so much of what he believed in. It'd be nice to get his opinions on the way I was raised and just what I stand for.
So, wanted to ask if you wouldn't mind telling our listeners a little bit about where they could find you. Are you active on social media, or what's the best way for them to find out a little bit more about you?
Yeah, I am. I'm on. I have a Twitter. I'm gonna do better at getting back involved. Haven't been on that in a while, but I'm on Instagram. It's MCCDavid14. And you can find most other information about me on that.
And then, Dave, last question I have for you is the same question I ask everybody: is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
I just want to leave you with: don't be afraid of being uncomfortable or putting yourself in a position where you feel uncomfortable. That's generally where we all grow. So if you're in a position with a coach or a teammate, that you don't necessarily like or is different, or if your coach is challenging you to be a different type player, or you're playing with a teammate that you're not accustomed to, don't just give up on it. Don't just look for the next best thing. Challenge yourself to learn. It's a position where you can grow. There will always be the availability to go finding something new. But try to get what you can out of it. Find out what's making it uncomfortable. When you first picked up a basketball, it was probably uncomfortable. If I were to pick up a tennis racket right now, it'd be uncomfortable. But you get better if you allow yourself to. If you allow yourself, that's where you grow. So push your comfort zones. Learn to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable, and make sure you hold yourself and people around you accountable.
I love it. I don't think you can see it, but we have a clothing line and everything is #accountability. So I love that you touch on that. So Dave, my man, I truly appreciate it, and I hope that you and I can connect again soon.
No, absolutely. Love to sit down and talk a little bit more.
Thank you for listening to episode number 285. I appreciate Dave touching on both some of his injuries as well as the culture he was a part of at Duke. In his parting words, Dave shared something I think we all need to hear: the importance of not being afraid to be uncomfortable. It's not easy or simple, and it definitely won't happen overnight, but it is worth it. Challenge yourself to do one thing every single day moving forward that is outside of your comfort zone. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.